My fiancée said her ex was dangerous and that I shouldn't talk to him. I didn't. Until he showed up at my work, holding a folder with her name on it, and began to persuade me not to marry her. I thought he was lying. Then she burst in, snatched the papers, and screamed, "You promised you'd burn that." I was 30 when I proposed to Lena. She said yes before I even finished the sentence. Then she laughed, wrapped her arms around my neck, and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to ask." Her voice was steady, sweet. I didn't see anything hiding beneath it, nothing sharp or fragile. But now I realized the first red flag came just 4 days later, and I was too caught up in her smile to notice it for what it was. We were on the couch flipping through wedding venues on her laptop when her screen lit up with a text. Just a name. Aaron. Followed by, "We need to talk." I didn't think much of it, but her entire body went still. She slammed the laptop shut like it burned her, then turned to me and said, too quickly, "There's something I should probably explain before you get the wrong idea." She told me Aaron was her ex. Not just any ex, the kind you move cities to get away from. According to her, he was obsessive, unpredictable, emotionally unstable. She said he had trouble accepting their breakup and used to pop up wherever she went. Sometimes he emailed her. Once, he sent flowers to her work. She said she'd blocked him, but he always found a way. "You don't need to worry about him," she said, placing her hand on mine. "But if he ever reaches out to you, ever, I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Don't engage. Don't reply. Don't even open the door. He feeds off that." I nodded, even though something about her eyes, how wide they were, how rehearsed she sounded, left a chill under my ribs. Still, she was beautiful. Kind. She volunteered at an animal shelter, called her grandmother every Sunday, brought me soup when I was sick. I wanted to believe her. So I did. The wedding planning was a full-time operation. Lena threw herself into it like she was building the rest of our lives from scratch. Venue tours, menu tastings, dress fittings, cake consultations. She loved every second of it. She even made us a shared spreadsheet of tasks, and to her credit, she carried the bulk of the weight. My job as a senior systems analyst kept me buried in late hours most weeks, and Lena joked that she'd be the groom and the wedding planner if I didn't start RSVPing to my own appointments. That said, a few things started nagging at me. She refused to include her Chicago friends on the guest list. Said she'd outgrown that phase of her life. Whenever I asked how she and Aaron met, she'd go vague. "Oh, we dated for a bit. Nothing serious," she'd say, even though she'd once called him dangerous. And then there were the nightmares. More than once, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find her sitting on the floor of the bathroom, scrolling through her phone, eyes glassy. When I asked, she'd say she just couldn't sleep, that she was overwhelmed, that planning a wedding brought up past traumas. It wasn't until one Friday morning that something shifted. I was at work, halfway through writing a project audit, when I got a plain envelope in my office inbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name on the front in block letters. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. No signature. Ask her why she left out Chicago. Ask before it's too late. I stared at the note for a long time. My heart beat a little faster, but I told myself it was probably a prank. Someone at work messing with me. Or maybe Aaron. He must have found out we were engaged. Maybe this was his way of trying to scare me off. I crumpled the paper and threw it in the bin. But that night, as Lena hummed in the kitchen and lit candles for dinner, I found myself asking, lightly, "Hey, why don't we invite anyone from your old firm in Chicago?" Her hands paused over the wine bottle. Only for a second, but I noticed. They weren't close friends. Besides, that chapter of my life's over. She poured the wine and changed the subject before I could press further. 2 days later, Aaron showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a Zoom call when I saw the receptionist buzz in. "There's someone here to see you." Says his name is Aaron Colvin. My stomach twisted. I stepped out into the lobby, ready to ask security to escort him out. But what I saw stopped me cold. He wasn't wild-eyed. He wasn't twitching or anxious or loud. He was clean-shaven, wore a button-down and jeans, and held a manila folder under one arm like a job applicant. He extended a hand. "Daniel, right? I'm Aaron. I know I'm not welcome, but I need 5 minutes. You deserve that much." I didn't shake his hand, but I didn't walk away either. I led him to the empty break room and crossed my arms. "You've got 3. Aaron set the folder on the table between us and slid it forward. "I'm not here to fight for her. I'm here because she doesn't just leave people. She erases them, and she lies about who they were." I didn't sit down. I didn't even touch the folder. "She told me you were unstable. Obsessive." He laughed softly. "She says that about every man who finds out the truth. She said the same thing about Marcus." "Who's Marcus?" He raised an eyebrow. "She hasn't told you." He tapped the folder. "That'll explain it." I didn't touch it. "You should," he added, "especially before the vows. Unless you want to end up like him." I felt my pulse quicken. Like who? Aaron stood, slinging his bag over one shoulder. Ask her about Chicago. Ask her about Marcus Ellery. Or don't. But when she snaps, and she will, you'll know I wasn't lying. He left before I could stop him. I stood there for a long time before reaching out and flipping the folder open. Inside, her real past was waiting. I didn't believe him at first. Even after he walked out and left that folder behind. Even as it sat there on the table like something radioactive, part of me still wanted to toss it in the trash and forget the conversation ever happened. I told myself it was an elaborate stunt. An ex with an agenda. Someone trying to ruin what Lena and I had. But the curiosity was louder than the doubt. I waited until the office cleared out for lunch. Then I locked the break room door, sat down, and opened the folder. The first page was a copy of an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. Her name was at the top, but it wasn't Lena Carson. It was Elena M. Carrington. The signature matched hers. I'd seen it 100 times on our lease, our wedding deposits, even birthday cards. The company listed was one I'd never heard of. Something called Ellery Financial Group. I Googled it quickly. Turns out it was a boutique investment firm based in Chicago. Still active. Under the NDA was a copy of a settlement agreement. The amount was blanked out, but the language was clear. She had received a sum in exchange for terminating employment and agreeing not to disclose certain events that had taken place during her time there. There were other documents. Medical records. Redacted incident reports. A restraining order, not from her, but against her. And photos. One in particular made my throat tighten. It was a grainy picture of her and a man, mid-30s, sharp suit, hand around her waist, smiling at some kind of gala. On the back, a note. Marcus Ellery, for months before the fall. I flipped the page. A hospital intake report. Date, almost 3 years ago. Patient, Marcus J. Ellery. Injuries, fractured clavicle, head trauma, dislocated shoulder. Circumstances of injury, fall from 5th floor balcony. No witnesses. The report added, patient reports confusion about the incident. Memory loss suspected. There was a printed email. From Lena, to someone named Kara. It was casual. A throwaway line made me stop. Can you believe he actually told HR I pressured him into moving client funds? Like, sweetie, if you didn't want to help, just say so. Don't invent trauma. I sat back in my chair and stared at the folder. I didn't know what to think. None of it made sense. This wasn't the Lena I knew. The woman I was supposed to marry. But the details were too specific to ignore, and the pieces, Chicago, the secrecy, the vague, dangerous ex story, were starting to fall into place. That evening, I took the folder home. I hid it in the bottom drawer of my desk. I couldn't ask her anything outright without tipping my hand, so I started subtle. What was your first job out of college? I asked casually as she cooked. Oh, just admin stuff. Temp work. Nothing worth mentioning, she said, without looking up from the pan. You ever work in finance? She hesitated. Just for a second. No. God, no. Numbers stress me out. I smiled. Nodded. Let her lie. But something had changed in her. Or maybe I was just seeing it now for the first time. She'd always been careful with her words, but now I noticed the tightness in her answers. The way she was always watching me out of the corner of her eye. She was never fully still. Always adjusting something. Her hair, her bracelet, her posture. And then there was her phone. She started taking it with her everywhere. Even into the shower. The lock screen changed too, from a shared photo of us on vacation to a blank black background. When I asked why, she said the photo felt too sentimental. That same week, I called Ellery Financial Group. Told them I was looking for references for a job applicant and gave her full name, Elena Carrington. After a long pause, the receptionist said quietly, "We don't have any comment. But if you're asking about her in a hiring context, I strongly suggest you request full disclosure." The line went dead before I could ask more. I wanted to believe there was some explanation. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she'd been set up. So I did the one thing Aaron told me not to. I reached out again. I found his number on the back of the folder and texted, "Meet me. I need to know what actually happened." He responded within 10 minutes. "Tomorrow. 4 p.m. Café Lemieux, downtown. Ask her about Marcus. Say the name. Watch her face." The next morning, Lena was up early, making pancakes and playing old jazz records. She was cheerful, like nothing had changed. It made my stomach twist. I sat across from her, watching her pour coffee. "Babe?" I asked. "Yeah. You ever known someone named Marcus?" She froze. It was less than a second, but it was enough. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the carafe down. "No," she said too quickly. "Why?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Just a name that popped into my head." She forced a laugh. "That's random." And then she changed the subject. Later that day, I met Aaron at the cafe. He brought more documents. A transcript of an internal investigation summary. A timeline. Even a printed voicemail from Marcus's mother, pleading with Lena to stop contacting her son. Aaron told me everything. Lena and Marcus had been engaged briefly. She'd convinced him to borrow money from a discretionary fund, under the pretense that her brother was sick and uninsured. When he tried to back out, she threatened to claim emotional abuse and ruin his reputation at the firm. He broke things off. She followed him to his hotel the night before a major client meeting. The next morning, he was found on the sidewalk below the balcony. Broken, but alive. She claimed he jumped. He said he didn't remember, but someone heard arguing. A woman's voice. Why would she do all this? I asked. Aaron didn't answer right away. Then he said, because she thinks she's smarter than everyone else. And because every time it gets too real, when a man starts seeing the cracks, she runs. Or breaks him. Whichever is easier. I left without touching my drink. That night, Lena came over. She brought wine. She smiled. She kissed me. I told her we should talk. Then I left the folder on the table and watched her face as she saw it. The smile disappeared, and she ran straight for it. The second Lena saw the folder, her entire posture changed. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't even pretend she didn't recognize it. She went silent, stepped forward slowly, and reached for it like it was a loaded gun. I didn't stop her. She opened it, flipped through a few pages, then slammed it shut. Where did you get this? Her voice was too calm, too measured. I stayed seated. You said your ex was dangerous. He is. He didn't seem dangerous when he handed me this. Her eyes darted toward the hallway, then back to me. You talked to him? Daniel, I told you. You told me a lot of things, I cut in. And now I can't tell what was ever real. She let out a slow exhale, then leaned her hands on the table, hovering over the folder. You don't know what he's like, she said. He's obsessed with me. He's been following me for years. Do you know what it's like to be afraid every time you check your phone? He doctored those papers. He's trying to ruin my life because I moved on. I called your old company. They didn't deny anything. Her jaw clenched. You had no right. I'm supposed to marry you in 2 months. I have every right. That landed. She straightened up, crossed her arms. So what? You believe him over me. I believe what's in that folder. Your NDA. Your signature. The records. The lies. They're not lies, she said sharply. They're just out of context. I laughed under my breath. She stepped closer. I did what I had to do. Marcus was falling apart. He was already fragile. He wouldn't take no for an answer. I was scared. I was alone. I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt anyone. He almost died. And I didn't push him. Her voice cracked. That's what you want to ask, right? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. For a second, the mask slipped. Her lip trembled. She looked away. I just wanted to start over, she whispered. I thought I finally had. With you. There was silence. Then the door opened. Aaron stepped into the apartment, quiet as a shadow. She didn't even see him at first. But I did. And I said nothing. He stood just inside the hallway, waiting. When she turned and saw him, she froze. Then all at once, she exploded. You said you'd stay away. You promised, she shrieked, and lunged toward him. He held up a hand, calm. I didn't come to fight. You said you'd burn that folder. You promised me you'd burn it. She turned on me again, panic now fully alive in her voice. Daniel, he's lying. He said if I didn't sleep with him, he'd ruin me. He made me sign that NDA under pressure. None of this was my choice. You think I wanted to disappear and change my name? Aaron didn't move. Didn't argue. He just said, tell him what happened to Marcus. Her mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted from me to the folder, to Aaron, then back. She tried to speak, but no words came out. I stood and stepped back, putting the kitchen island between us. I didn't feel safe. Not really. And for the first time, I let myself believe the worst part might still be coming. You don't understand, she said quietly. It wasn't like that. Marcus, he told me he loved me. He said he wanted to help. I didn't force him. Aaron replied coldly. You told him your brother was dying. You cried at his desk. You begged him to help. And when he hesitated, you reminded him that HR had already believed worse things about men than they had about women. Her face twisted. You weren't even there. No, he said. But I was there when he stopped sleeping. When he said he couldn't face the board. When he said he didn't know what was real anymore. She turned to me again, softer now, pleading. I didn't push him. I swear to you. I never said you did, I said again. But that's what you think. I didn't answer. Aaron left the room without another word. He didn't gloat. He didn't say, I told you so. He just disappeared down the hall, leaving me and Lena in silence. She sank into a chair, pale, breathing shallow. Are you going to call off the wedding? She asked finally. I didn't speak. She leaned forward, her voice thin and hollow. If you leave me now, all of this, everything I rebuilt, you'll destroy it. Please don't do that. You built it on a lie. I had to. It was the only way to survive. I stared at her for a long time. And then I said quietly, I think you've confused survival with strategy. She didn't respond. I picked up the folder, walked toward the bedroom, and locked it away. Not for revenge, not for justice, but because I needed time to figure out how much of my life was real, and how much of it had been engineered by someone who had rehearsed every answer, every apology, every tear. The apartment was still. She didn't follow. She knew she'd lost something. What she didn't know was how far I was willing to go now, to make sure she never did this again to anyone else. Lena didn't return my calls after that night. She didn't come home either, but I knew it wasn't over. By the second day, I'd canceled the wedding venue and notified every vendor. I didn't give them reasons, just dates and names. Most didn't ask questions. A few expressed sympathy. I barely heard any of it. That morning, I placed the folder, the same one Aaron had given me, into a locked safe under my desk. I didn't plan to use it, but I wasn't about to pretend it never existed. By late afternoon, the quiet was interrupted. The front door slammed open without warning. She didn't knock. I heard the frantic steps before I even stood up. Then she was there, standing in the doorway, breath short and arms tense, eyes scanning the apartment like she was looking for something that had been stolen. Before I could say a word, she stepped past me and demanded to know why I had canceled everything. She had found out through one of the vendors who tried calling her. Her voice wasn't confused. It was accusatory, sharp, like I had betrayed her. I told her she needed to leave. Calmly, directly. She didn't listen. Instead, she began tearing through drawers, checking behind books, moving pillows on the couch. She wasn't trying to talk. She was hunting, and I knew exactly what she was looking for. She made it halfway down the hallway before noticing the corner of the envelope sticking out of my bag near the coat rack. She grabbed it and pulled out the folder. The moment she saw what it was, her face shifted. Her hands clenched the papers. Her voice cracked, not in sadness, but in rage. Then she let out a furious scream and accused me of breaking a promise I never made. She shouted that those files were supposed to be destroyed, that someone had promised her they would disappear, and now they were in my hands. She didn't deny what was inside. She didn't try to explain. Her instinct wasn't to defend. It was to destroy the evidence. I stood between her and the door, but she wasn't trying to leave. She wanted to control what came next. She began demanding that I hand over every copy, that I give her the USB, the printed records, anything Aaron may have shared with me. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I told her again to leave. For a moment, she said nothing, just stood in the middle of the room with that folder in her hands, breathing fast, staring at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Then her tone changed. She dropped the accusations. She started speaking gently, saying that things had gotten out of hand, that we were both overwhelmed, that we could fix it if we took time, if we kept this between us. She even suggested postponing the wedding instead of canceling it altogether. I let her speak, not because I believed her, but because I wanted to see how many versions of herself she would try before giving up. Eventually, her voice slowed. She asked if I'd ever really loved her. I didn't answer. When she realized I wasn't going to stop her from walking out, she quietly placed the folder on the table, looked around the apartment one last time, and stepped outside without saying anything else. The door closed behind her. I locked it. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. Her lies had already collapsed under their own weight. She hadn't just manipulated the truth. She'd reshaped her entire life to hide from it. And for a while, she succeeded. But it only took one person who refused to play along to bring it crashing down. Later that night, I stored the folder away, sealed secure. I didn't upload it anywhere. I didn't threaten her. I didn't make a scene. I just protected myself. She hasn't contacted me since. No messages. No attempts to explain. And for the first time in weeks, my apartment was silent again. But this time, the silence felt like freedom. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.